My mother was married on Cousins Island. My grandfather owned a cottage on Princess Point. I think he paid $400 for it. And when I was very, very young and fell in love with Yarmouth, Maine, I said, well, that's where I'm going to retire. As life went on, and I found that it does not end at 40 or 60 or 80, I resolved that it is a place where I would settle, but not retire. And I have no interest in retiring. In short, I had absolutely no intention of applying for the bar. That didn't happen for over a year later. The first one is Dr. Sam Shepard of Ohio. I was just a kid booting around on taxpayer expense in a Sabre jet when he was arrested and put to trial, and was asked much later in life to supervise a polygraph test for him. And the fellow that asked me had just published a book about it. So I agreed, and then I read the book, and then I heard a lieutenant in Cleveland with whom I was arguing bitterly that the evidence showed Shepard didn't do it. And he said to me, if Sam Shepard is innocent, I don't want to know it. And I didn't fly into a rage, but I said, okay, gloves are off. And I filed a suit in federal court saying what Ohio did is an outrage. The judge agreed. He got reversed 2-1, went to the Supreme Court, 8-0. We were vindicated. And then something happened that has never happened before or since. Because The Fugitive had been a very successful television series, it later became a very good movie with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. And half of the jurors I put in the box for the retrial were too young to have been permeated with the vitriol that was coursing through Cleveland's community at the time Shepard was tried in '54. And I asked them if they'd read or ever watched The Fugitive. And the youngsters and quite a number of the older sector had. And I dropped it right there because everybody knew The Fugitive was Sam Shepard. And everybody knew The Fugitive was innocent. So I think I went in with a presumption of innocence really working for once. He was summarily acquitted, and he died 4 years later, which was sad. And then I was hired to defend a captain in the army named Medina for a rampage in a Vietnamese village called My Lai 4. The facts in that case were disgusting to the point of being bilious. To see fully armed GIs shooting into a trench which contained nothing but elderly women, children, and infants, and just killing them by the carload. And there were photographs of this which appeared in Life magazine. So the whole world got to see how lousy this was. And I was defending the company commander who was not present. He was outside the village. And he discovered what had happened and didn't report it. But by the time they charged him, the statute had run on that. But he was charged with 100 murders. Medina was a wonderful guy. He was Mexican-American, brought up in New Mexico, grateful to have an education, grateful to have been accepted in the Army, and a very good company commander, much respected. We had a case very famous from World War II, where the guy who ran Douglas MacArthur out of the Philippines, prompting the famous remark, "I shall return," was a Japanese general, not a nice man, nicknamed the Tiger of Malaysia, but his real name was Yamashita. When the war ended, MacArthur managed to get a military commission to charge him within a month with about 2,000 murders in the Philippines, and his men had run amok. The Supreme Court said he was the boss, even though he wasn't anywhere near the scene. He can be punished for what his men did. And the judge said to me, Mr. Bailey, even though your client was not in the village, this is the U.S. Supreme Court talking. According to the Yamashita case, it doesn't make any difference. He goes down anyway. Why should I not apply this case? And I didn't have a good legal reason, but I said, Judge, Yamashita was the vanquished. We beat him. Medina is one of our own. We wouldn't apply that rule to our own. And he said, I agree with you, and ruled that it was out, and the jury acquitted Medina in a matter of minutes with a vote of 5-0. All we needed was 2 out of 5 to win the military court. And I was very, very proud of both cases. Shepard, because he was at the bottom of the barrel. He'd lost 11 appeals. Lawyers used to tweak my nose for taking his case, saying you must have a big fee because we all know you can't win it. And many conceded he's probably innocent. They said, can't win. And Medina, I was able to sift out for the benefit of a decent guy from a terribly sordid event and set of circumstances. Not only did he get acquitted, but he got his life back, and that's rare. An awful lot of my clients suffer what is called the damnation of an acquittal. And most prominent among those is O.J. Simpson. He'd been kicked around more for being acquitted than he would have been if he'd been convicted. I'm closest to the camera. I knew the verdict the night before. I got confirmation from the jury that morning indirectly. And so I'm like a Cheshire cat, no tension, no surprise. And the verdict is just being announced. O.J. knew it for a different reason, but he was sure glad to hear it confirmed. Johnny Cochran had been told by me, Johnny, it's okay, we have an acquittal. Johnny wasn't quite sure. And you can see from the look in his face, oh, really? Shapiro had told everybody there would be a conviction. And he'd arranged to go out and do an exclusive interview with Barbara Walters, saying he was disgusted with the defense for playing the race card. And you can see he's leaving with no joy.